Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, the show where we help coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders build businesses that create massive impact. I'm Adam Roach, alongside my incredible co-host,
Jess Webber, and we're here today to bring you the best strategies, mindset shifts, and real-life success stories to help you level up in your coaching journey.
Whether you're launching your coaching business, scaling to 6 or 7 figures, or just looking for inspiration to push through, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're bringing you expert insights, real talk, and actionable items every single episode. So if you're ready to take your coaching game to the next level,
then let's dive on in. Here's your problem. Your problem right now that I just experienced is you don't have boredom in your life. You don't have a space where you are free to think. You don't have a space where you're free from the noise. And today, I want to talk to them about that and my experience of being in Wyoming with no noise, literal no noise. And the net of this whole thing, Jess, that I want them to feel at the end of it is I want them to feel this word freedom, right? So we're going to talk you through how and why you're conditioning to think that noise is good and it's actually robbing you of your freedom. And that's where I want to get to, Jess.
This is going to be a good conversation. But before we dive into your experience and all the things, can you define what you believe noise is? Because I think there's people that perceive it a bunch of different ways.
Gosh, I just got goosebumps with you asking that because I experienced a noise-free week. Noise is anything that distracts us, right? Noise and distraction is a really interesting word along with noise because we don't know what's actually distracting us. We don't know that we're being distracted and how it's actually taking away, I won't say our authentic self, but I'll say our creative self. It's taking away our true pathway towards, again, going back to freedom, right? I know I'm using really macro-based language here, but that's what I see as noise. Noise is anything that's distracting you from.
So you're saying this is the doom scrolling on the phone, but it also could be the podcast you have in the background. This could be the TV playing while you're doing something else. It could be music while you're reading even, right? Well, so it's an input in some capacity on your senses is the way that I'm hearing this.
Yeah. And it could also be, you might even be in the wrong field of work, right? I mean, let's just be honest. You might be in a space that you're just getting by because you need to pay the bills, but you may be not called to do what you're doing. I know that again, I'm in a very interesting space right now from this trip, Jess, because I never experienced this before. So let me explain what this trip was.
Okay.
And to give them some context here. So I went with my church, but it wasn't church oriented, kind of was, but not really, to a place called Refuge. And this was in Hyattsville, Wyoming, population of 79 people. 79, not 790, 79 people.
Not 79,000, just 79, period.
Our community has almost more people than this town had, right? There was no grocery stores. There wasn't even a stoplight. There was, in this town, and we were just on the outskirts of this town. I can honestly say, I think we drove through the town 2 or 3 times to come in and out from where we were. I can honestly say I probably don't think I saw anybody. I never saw anybody. And what Refuge was, the way it was laid out to me through Seacoast was we don't take, and I say we, both male and female, take time to ourselves, not a vacation, right? Because how many people, Jess, I know you felt this way. I feel this way all the time. When you go on a vacation, you need a vacation from the vacation.
Yeah, it's still work, especially as a parent. Like if you're dealing with small children or whatever, there's no break from them.
Yeah. So we flew into Billings, Montana. And again, I still don't know where that is on a map. We jumped into a van. There was actually 24 of us that went. It almost looked like we were part of like a cartel because there were 3 black SUVs and this white van. I was like, man, and then the white van was kind of in the middle of these 3 SUVs. It was fascinating. And we drove 3 hours to Hyattsville. And we pull up all dirt roads. Everything was dirt roads. And it was so cool. We crossed over this river and everything's changing colors. But the only thing that was changing colors were the trees along this beautiful, it was a river, and everything else was like mountainous type green. And we pull in, it's probably like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. And there were 4 women on horseback and they just took off running with these flags, right? There's an American flag, a Wyoming flag, and I don't know what the other two flags were. It was super surreal. And we pull up and we get out, the three black SUVs and the white van, and they're saying welcome and all this stuff. And then if you stop, Jess, you don't hear anything. There's no noise. There's zero noise. And that was the only noise you heard was the river flowing, right? And it was a river stream, whatever it was, but it was wide to me, and the water was going, so it kind of looked like a river. Could have been a stream. I don't know the difference, honestly.
A body of water. Got it.
Body of water that was not stagnant. And it was very cold, by the way. So there's the start of this experience. And this is what we were told when we get there. There is no agenda. Okay, there's no agenda. The only agenda was 7 p.m. They would ring like the triangle, like I guess they do in the cowboy movies. I don't know. And it's like, that's time to eat, boys. Time to come home. Wherever you are in the field, wherever you are in the country, time to come home. And they did. They rang this at 7 o'clock. And we all, like school children, came in and sat down and ate. And that was the only thing on the agenda the entire day. And in addition to that, we sat around this table, 24 guys, and fellowshipped. Super cool. And they wanted us to rest. They wanted us to there was no cell phone service. My phone said SOS all week. There was no Wi-Fi there. There was no TVs there. The only activities we could do was rest, connect in conversation, go fly fishing, go trail riding, go hiking. That was it. That was it. That was literally it. Oh, and eat dinner at 7 o'clock. So we can go into more detail with that, but I want to get to the noise part. I had no idea of the amount of noise that I was allowing. Again, remember, we're taking the word noise and interchanging it with the word distraction. I had no idea how much noise I was letting in. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. Because I had no cell phone service, because I had no Wi-Fi, my phone was literally just a camera. And there was one day that we went to this, we just took off hiking. And it wasn't like you could use your phone as a compass because, again, there was no service. Actually, I didn't even try. And we attempted to go get lost, and we did. And it was a little scary because there were mountain lions out there. There were elk out there. It was. We had to figure out based on the sun, the way the sun was going down, which way was west and which way was east, north and south. And I did not realize how much noise I was allowing to come into my life to distract me from really what was the most important until Monday, right? Monday, post-return. And it was almost like sensory overload. It was hard on Monday because I'd not become used to, and not because I was like romanticizing about the West. And I did put on a cowboy hat and I did ride horses. I wasn't romanticizing about that, but it was all taken away, right? The noise was taken away. I couldn't listen to a book on my phone. I mean, I could if I would have downloaded one, but it's usually not downloaded. It's just an Audible. I didn't realize that I had no music downloaded, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get anything. So the phone literally was a camera the entire week. And then come back to, let's call it reality. There was so much stimulation that it threw me for a bad loop. It threw me for a bad loop that I was like, I had to shake my head and be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Right? What do I do? And what do I need to not engage with? And one of the questions that they would ask when we were doing our fellowship and roundtables was like, how are you going to re-enter? And what are you going to be different? How are you going to be different? And I had no idea that I had stepped into that feeling so fast that I actually enjoyed not having noise. And I shared with you that every night my routine is to sit in a hot tub. And I caught myself sitting in the hot tub. I tried to make an electronic free zone, but I'll blame that on my wife for bringing her phone in there. And I caught myself not scrolling because I hadn't scrolled all week. I was just reading, right? I was just literally reading. And I thought, wow, how conditioned have I become to doing mindless things that are distractions and not keeping me in a space of creativity, presence, any of that. So there's the story, there's the context. There's a lot deeper thought and process into that, but I just want to leave it at that for now. And let's talk through this.
No, I think that's great context because, maybe you haven't had the opportunity Adam had to go to this place and sit by a body of non-stagnant water in Wyoming, but maybe you've gone to a lake house that didn't have internet, or you've been on a cruise pre-internet, satellite days or whatever. And I think that there is value in looking at an environment that is set up for something different, right?
Mhm.
And so your environment in Wyoming, just like I use cruises as an example because I've been on many of them and I loved them because I could disconnect.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't until recently that you could get a cheap internet plan. And so
Mhm.
I would get on and I'd turn off my phone for the week and
Mhm.
I would, read by the water because the water made me happy and enjoy the sun and eat and sleep and connect with people and think. And it's the same kind of concept,
Mhm.
even though I know cruises have a lot more stimulation than Wyoming does. But it's such an interesting thing to take that time to do some semblance of like sensory deprivation almost. It's
Yeah.
it's removing the noise, the podcast, the people, the inputs, the notifications, the whatever. And there is so much power in knowing who you are and how you operate and creating that space for yourself consistently, I
Yeah.
think. Because I don't think people recognize, like you kind of, I don't think they recognize how much they're overloaded in this noise space until they have an experience like that. I
Well,
mean,
again,
some of,
it
yeah,
goes back to the word conditioning, right? We are literally conditioning ourselves, and I am no, I'll say saint. I'm no saint in this space, right? Though it has been the epiphany there was I didn't realize how conditioned I had conditioned myself
sure.
to the noise, to the distractions, how it was part of the everyday. And boy, what a, I mean, you know me, bad bald jokes. I let my hair down, right? It was like I was able to let my hair down and just kind of be free is probably not the right word. It was just,
You gave yourself permission.
that's right.
I think that's really what this is we live in such a instant gratification, high volume, high technology, high speed world.
Yeah.
And going to a place like that gives you the space to say, I don't have to operate at this speed. I don't have to respond
Right.
quickly. I don't have to deal with all these inputs, right?
Mhm.
And it changes the way that you operate. And so you mentioned earlier, it gives you a new sense of, opportunity or creativity or whatever. And I do believe that for sure, because when you remove all the stimuli, you're stuck with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you have this opportunity to think, to explore, to create, to whatever, because you're not having to be responsive or filter at all times.
Yeah, that's it's very, very true and very, very spot on. So here's the question: what does everyone go to Wyoming in a Hyattsville and population of 79 with no cell phone service, no Wi-Fi? Right, that's not our world that we live in. And here's the thing: we had just gone through at church, ironically,
Hmm.
like a what do we call it? We called it a
A
detox,
digital detox,
digital
wasn't
detox,
it?
right? Yeah, a
Yeah.
digital detox. Okay, cool. I went along with it, but the phone wasn't off.
Hmm.
It was just like, okay, I'm not going to get on social media, or I will allow myself like 15 minutes in a day.
Hmm.
But it wasn't off.
Hmm.
The distraction was still there. The noise was still there. It was just controlled time wise now.
100%. So you asked the question, how do we do that? You're right.
Mhm,
Not everybody can go to Wyoming. Not everybody can get on a cruise ship, right? Or
mhm,
whatever the
mhm,
thing is that helps you decompress. But I think the first step is recognizing that you need it and
mhm,
scheduling it, whether
mhm,
it's 2 hours in a week or a day for yourself in a month or a quarter or something like that. What I do is I travel pretty much monthly. I usually pick a really early morning flight
mhm,
so that the day that I'm traveling, I don't have any commitments and I can detox myself that day because
mhm,
I get very overstimulated in airports and things like
mhm,
that. That's a lot of noise, that's a lot of people, that's a lot of smells. And I'm very like hypersensitive to sound and smell. So it's like, it's just a lot,
mhm,
even with noise canceling headphones and things like that. And so it's like, I will go to my hotel room, right? And decompress. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything. I will put on my pajamas and just most of the time I'll read or write or work on something myself. And I don't think a lot of people schedule that time for themselves.
mhm,
So, like, I figured out a way to do it for myself that works within my schedule. You might not be a traveler every month and you might not have that ability. But, like I said, you pick an hour or 2 hours a week that you're like, I'm committed to the phone is off, the notifications are off. You can be go sit in nature. It can be go sit in your hot tub, although I wouldn't
mhm,
suggest that for 2 hours.
mhm.
But it can be go sit somewhere and be okay with it being
Yeah.
quiet. and take a journal or take a whatever you need. I mean, you can be by yourself, but take a book. It doesn't matter. But it's like, give yourself the permission first and then keep that appointment with yourself that you set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me give more visual context here. We were on a trail ride, and we get up on top of this. I guess you would. I don't think it's not really a mountain, but maybe like a foothill. But it kind of felt like a mountain because it got colder as we went up. And by the way, I kept a toboggan on my head the entire time. There's nothing worse than being that cold. I was freezing. Right, I don't do cold that well. We were on top of this mountain, we'll call it, on the horseback, and off to our right was an elk, massive, big bull elk. There was actually 3 of them sitting there. They weren't standing up. One of them was laying down, just kind of hanging out, laying down. It's like, wow, that's kind of cool in nature to see them just chilling too. And then we get to the top of this, and this is the vastness of where we were. We could see, well, the lady, the trail guide that we were with said, she pointed away, and you could see these mountains, and the mountains had snow on top of them. And she's like, those are the Rockies in Yellowstone. It's like, wow, that's really cool. And I said, how far is that? And she said, that's about 4 hours away. And I was like, we can see 4 hours away? And she was like, yeah. And there just was nothing between us and 4 hours away. And
that's insane.
It was insane. And I was like, wow, that nothing north, south, east, west of us. We're literally up there. And there was 5 of us, including the guide. And if we all stopped talking and the horses stopped making whatever horse noises they were making, there was no sound. Like no birds or nothing was chirping. It was a little, maybe too cold for birds. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was no sound. And that's a literal sense of no noise. And then, man, each night for me, it just kept getting more and more quiet, right? Again, not literally, but more mentally. It just kept getting quieter and quieter and quieter to the point where the distractions, I could actually feel myself finish a thought. Right? I could actually feel myself go from creative thought process to completion of thought process. I could feel myself really have an internal conversation where it wasn't like, oh my gosh, there's a new thought that came in. Wonder what's on my phone. Oh my gosh, there's a new thought that came in. I just got a ding and I need to go look at something else, right? And again, I'm not blaming everything on the phone, but that is a big distraction in our lives. It was, I can sit here and complete a thought and then go take that thought to a group of patient around that to get their feedback, to get their input, to get their whatever you want to call it. And that was what was filling up that space of distraction. Now was feedback, was conversation.
It was critical thinking.
Yeah.
At a totally different level.
Totally. Yeah. We call it deep work, right? And there was massive, consistent deep work every single day as the noise got quieter.
Well, and like I said, not everybody can commit to 5 days in Wyoming or anything like that. But no matter how much time you can commit to, if you do it consistently, you'll find it gets easier and you get more productive throughout it because you're reconditioning yourself to slow down, to take space. Because we live in this world that like challenges you to be speed to lead in every single thing that you do, right? Get it done the fastest, most efficient way. And efficiency isn't always effective. And for me, that's a big part of this conversation. So even when I met you, Adam, 3.5 years ago, I was like, don't do this thing without us stopping and talking about it. And then you went and did it anyways. And then I came into your world and I was like, you have to slow down to speed up. And I knew you knew that, but it was like, it was a battle because you and I both were coming from this world that operated at speed and high speed at that. And it was like, no, you're going to get a much better product. You're going to develop a much better service. You're going to create something much deeper and more valuable if you slow down and do the work without all of the sensory inputs and really spend the time it takes to process it, think through it, like you said, discuss it, and just complete the thought, not iterate enough that you get it out in the world and then get feedback and then iterate again and never actually complete anything. Right?
Yeah. I can honestly say that personal growth had a great expedited or truly a hockey stick type moment because It was distraction, noise, free focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really was. Yes, you're right. Not everyone can go out to Wyoming for a week. Not everyone can jump on a cruise ship. And what we want to challenge you with is defining your freedom, right? What does freedom look like? And per this conversation, freedom is to remove noise. Now, the question is, how long can you go and do that? That's up to you. Right, listeners,
Mm-hmm.
that is totally up to you. Maybe start with 5 minutes, maybe start with 10 minutes, maybe start with 30 minutes.
Or if you live in one of those cities that has those like deprivation float tanks, go book one of those. Start there.
Yeah.
You know.
And just see what comes on the other side, because eventually you will start to feel that the distractions aren't necessary. Right? That's what I came out with on the other side as I sat in the hot tub last night and caught myself reading versus doom scrolling, right? It's not necessary. And again, this is all from my experience. I'm not saying that this is the right thing, but I'm telling you how I feel and felt that, boy, I had a lot of noise and I still have a lot of noise. And I'm working hard right now to continue to allow the noise to stay quiet because I don't want to continue to stack. Right? I feel like I was stacking noise upon noise upon noise. And now I want to go back and reflect, assess, and remove as much noise as possible. By the way, when I was looking in the hot tub too, I may or not have got on realtor.com, went to North Carolina and said, find me the most land I could possibly buy.
You're hilarious. Well, and I think another element to this that you haven't mentioned yet is you can't be 100% noise free all the time, but you can choose your noise.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was talking about with like choosing the time that you're noise free is one thing, but also example, you mentioned phone several times. My phone has been on silent for like 4 years. At least, minimum. Not vibrate, not anything. It's silent. And what I do is I have my text messages on my computer screen that I can take a glance at. I have my phone calls on my wristwatch, and I don't need to touch my phone otherwise because I only use it as a communication tool during my work hours. So I don't need the Facebook notifications, the Instagram DMs, the Snapchat silliness, or whatever else it might be that becomes a distraction. So it's things like that that are noise that you can choose to change how much input you're receiving and be really intentional. Or, I have a small child who loves to watch television, right? And instead of sitting there and watching the shows that he's watching, which, I mean, we are raising him right, he's watching old school Ninja Turtles and Batman and Thundercats and things like that, which, 80s cartoons are the best way to go. But it's like, I don't need to sit there and watch that as noise. So I sit and choose to read instead.
Right.
And people are like, well, how have you read 210 books this year? Because I think that's what I'm at right now. And I'm like, I'm making a choice as to what I'm choosing to input, what noise I'm choosing to receive. And I would much rather receive a book than I would a television show if I'm not playing with him, right? Or I would much rather read a book as input than doom scroll as input. When I drive, I don't typically listen to podcasts anymore or audiobooks anymore most of the time because I use that as thinking time. So it's not you have to take away all noise. It's not that all noise is bad, but it's being intentional with the noise that you choose to let back into your life after you do something like this.
Yep, so good. And I know on the other side of that assessment, I know on the other side of that reflection is freedom, right? And again, you can define freedom any way you want to. In my case, freedom was thought. My case, freedom was ability to think, ability to go deeper, ability to have great, deep work thought that I could then share and receive feedback and then ultimately come back and do bigger, better, greater things as it relates to serving. That's what we do is we serve and empower. That's what we're going towards.
No, I think this is a very timely conversation, especially as we head into what we always call the busy holiday season, right? And so there are going to be a lot of inputs. There's going to be a lot of noise. And again, it's all about intentionality and alignment, in all honesty. And those sound like big macro ideas, but it's really the truth of the matter is what is going to get you to where you want to be and what do you need to actually accomplish? And it's not a lot, but you tend to get distracted. We've had the conversation about distraction versus traction towards a goal, and noise is just another distraction.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And both distraction and traction are going they're moving, right? One's going
Right.
away, one's going towards, and you've got to see which is which in your world of noise, in your world of inputs that's coming in that is either gaining traction or distracting.
Well, and I made the mention of efficiency versus effectiveness earlier because that's one of the things that I teach in all of my productivity type classes is you could sit there and check off 427 things and say that you're very efficient, but if 426 of those are not moving you towards your goal, then they're just distractions,
That's right.
right? So
Mhm.
effectiveness and being intentional with your time, your energy, your noise inputs, etc., is going to change the trajectory and the speed at which you achieve the thing you're trying to achieve.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So we'll land the plane here and say this. Pay attention to the noises, which are distractions in your world, and seek to find freedom from those noises, right? Seek to find the freedom that allows yourself to go deep into whatever space you want to, and deep is relative, right? It could be 1 foot, it could be 100 foot, whatever you want to do, 100 feet, wherever you want to go, figure that out. Find your freedom. And just, this is a good segue. Here it comes. I'm back in mode now to sell. And what I mean by that is this is why I love our challenge. Right? So we have, and we've put this on quite a few times now, and we're going to continue to do this because this is a very simple focal point for people to grow their space. And that is our 10K coaching challenge, 10K coaching offer challenge. Right? It's a specific number with a specific focus. And what are we going to do? The next one's going to be the second week in November. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So November
10th.
10th. Okay. So November 10th, go to ilovecoachingco.com/challenge. Register for the VIP. Trust me, the VIP will move much better. And let us help you find that focus and that freedom away from your noise and distractions. Go check it out.
I think that's the perfect way to land this. And I mean, who doesn't want to spend $297 on VIP to make $10,000 plus dollars?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty good ROI. So, as Adam said, we hope that you found value in this. We hope that you take a moment to define your freedom and reduce your noise and figure out where you need to go. And we hope to see you, or we plan to see you, because I know hope is not a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
We plan to see you in our challenge in November.
That's right. ilovecoachingco.com. No, ilovecoachingco.com/challenge. We'll see you there.